When you hear the words medieval England, you probably picture castles, knights on horseback, kings waging war across muddy battlefields. But strip all of that away, and what you find is something far more ordinary and far more interesting. A town, a few thousand people crammed into narrow streets, buying bread, arguing over the price of wool, dumping waste out their windows. That was the real Middle Ages for most people. Not glory, not romance, just the daily grind of making a living in a place that smelled terrible and ran on church bells. This video will show you what an average day actually felt like inside an English market town around 1300 to 1350, and why that world, as rough as it was, built the foundations of how we still live and trade today. The day starts before sunrise, not because anyone is eager to begin, but because the parish church bells decide when everything happens. They ring for matins in the dark hours before dawn, and they ring again at prime, just as the first gray light touches the rooftops. That is your alarm. There is no other. The streets are narrow, some barely wide enough for two people to pass each other. Timber-framed houses lean outward from both sides, their upper floors jutting over the lane below, blocking out whatever light the sky offers. The ground underfoot is packed dirt, sometimes cobbled near the market square, mostly not. It is already damp, either from last night's rain or from whatever was thrown from the windows above. Smoke rises from a dozen chimneys and vents. The smell of wood fire mixes with animal dung, stale food, and the sharp tang of tanning leather drifting from the workshops on the street that locals call by its trade. Butcher's Row, Fish Market, Weaver Street. These names are not decorative. They describe exactly what happens there. A town of several hundred to a few thousand people organizes itself by craft, and those crafts cluster together, each one filling its corner of the town with its own particular noise and stink. By the time the bells ring for terce, roughly 9 in the morning, the working day is well underway. Craftsmen have opened their ground floor workshops. A carpenter is shaping a beam. A smith's hammer rings against hot iron. A baker pulls loaves from a clay oven, that coarse dark bread made from barley or rye that most people eat every day. These workshops are not separate buildings. They occupy the street-facing ground floor of the craftsman's own house. His family lives directly above, in rooms reached by a narrow staircase. There is no separation between work and home. The shop is the home, but today is not just any day. Today is market day, the single most important event of the week, held every Wednesday or Saturday, depending on local custom. The town holds its market by official charter, a legal grant that gives it the right to host regulated trade on a specific day. And that means people are coming in from the countryside, and the town is about to get crowded. At the toll gates on the edge of town, a keeper collects entry fees. Farmers with carts loaded with grain, eggs, and root vegetables pay a toll to cross the bridge and enter the market. Drovers guide small herds of livestock through the gate. Peddlers carry packs of goods on their backs, tin cups, needles, rough cloth. Everyone pays. The toll is how the town and its lord earn revenue from the market's existence, and no one passes without settling up. Around 40% of the population in this period works in agriculture, and on market day, a good portion of those people funnel into this one small space to trade what they have grown or raised for what they cannot make themselves. The market square sits at the center of town, overlooked by the parish church on one side and the guild hall on the other. By mid-morning, it is packed. Stalls are set up on trestle tables. Farmers sell their grain and vegetables. Fishmongers lay out the morning's catch on wooden boards. Butchers hang cuts of meat from hooks. The air fills with competing smells: fresh bread, raw fish, the iron and blood scent of the butcher's block, the earthy heaviness of livestock penned nearby. Haggling is constant. There are no fixed price tags. A buyer and seller negotiate every transaction face to face. A woman inspects a piece of woolen cloth, rubbing it between her fingers, checking the weave. She offers less than the weaver asks. They go back and forth. This is not casual browsing. Most goods in a medieval market town are made to order rather than displayed ready-made. If you want a new pair of shoes, you go to the cordwainer's workshop and describe what you need. He measures your foot and tells you when to come back. The market square handles raw materials and food daily necessities, but specialized work happens in the workshops along the side streets, and it happens on the customer's schedule, not the craftsman's. Now here's where things get interesting, because the market is not a free-for-all. Every trade in this town is regulated by a guild, and the guild system touches almost everything. By 1350, estimates suggest more than 200 different types of crafts existed across English towns. Weavers, bakers, smiths, carpenters, masons, tanners, chandlers, the list runs deep. Each major craft has its own guild, and the guild sets the rules. It controls who can practice the trade. It sets quality standards. It regulates prices. It determines how many apprentices a master craftsman can take on, and how long their training lasts, typically around 7 years before a young man qualifies to work independently as a journeyman, and longer still before he can become a master. This is not optional membership. If you want to practice a craft inside the town walls, you join the guild, or you do not work. The guild inspects your output. If a baker sells underweight loaves, the guild punishes him. If a weaver produces cloth below standard, the guild fines him. If you try to undercut other members on price, you face penalties. The system protects consumers from shoddy work, but it also protects established craftsmen from competition. It is a closed shop in every sense. An apprentice enters the system as a boy, often around age 12 or 13. He lives in his master's house. He eats at his master's table. He works in the workshop from dawn until the bells ring for vespers. He is not paid. His compensation is the training itself and the promise of a livelihood at the end of it. For 7 years, he learns the craft by doing it. Grinding grain, stoking the forge, cutting leather, whatever the trade demands. He does not choose his hours. He does not complain. The master has near total authority over his daily life. But the guilds are more than trade regulators. They are social organizations. They maintain a common fund to help members who fall sick or whose workshops burn down. They organize feast days. They march together in religious processions. In a town where your street is named for your trade and your neighbors practice the same craft, the guild is your community. The real power in town, though, does not rest with the craft guilds. It rests with the merchant guild. And here is where the medieval town starts to look surprisingly modern in its politics. The merchant guild is made up of the wealthiest men in town. Traders who deal in large volumes of wool, cloth, wine, spices, and imported goods. These men do not work with their hands. They buy low, sell high, and move goods across long distances. And their wealth translates directly into political power. In many English towns by 1350, the merchant guild effectively runs the town council. Its leading members serve as aldermen or mayors. They set market regulations. They negotiate with the local lord over the terms of the town's charter. They collect tolls and fees. A successful merchant in a town like York, which had a population of about 10,000 at this time, could rival a minor nobleman in influence and wealth. This challenges the common belief that medieval power belonged only to aristocrats and the church. In practice, money talked, and the men who controlled trade controlled the town. A town like York was one of the largest in England. But even in smaller market towns, the same pattern held. The merchant class sat at the top of urban society, below the nobility in legal status but often above them in ready cash. They funded the building of guild halls. They donated to the parish church. They paid for the stone bridges that replaced wooden ones. Their names appeared on civic records, on charitable foundations, on the rolls of town governance. The medieval market town was not a democracy, but it was governed by commerce as much as by birth. Most people assume the biggest problem with medieval town life was violence or political instability. The truth is far less dramatic and far more unpleasant. The real daily struggle was filth. There is no running water in any home in a 1350 market town. Water comes from wells and streams, the same streams that receive waste from tanneries, butcher shops, and households. There is no sewer system. Chamber pots are emptied into the street or into the nearest waterway. Animal dung from horses, pigs, and cattle piles up on the roads. Butchers dump offal in the gutters. The smell, especially on a warm day, is overpowering. A barber surgeon serves as the closest thing to a doctor. He pulls teeth, sets bones, and bleeds patients with leeches, all from the same chair. Medical understanding is almost non-existent by modern standards. Literacy rates in urban areas sit at around 30%, varying sharply by class and gender. And most of that literacy is among the clergy and merchant class. The average townsperson has no concept of bacteria or contamination. When illness strikes, people blame bad air, divine punishment, or simple bad luck. Dysentery and typhoid spread through contaminated water. Respiratory illness thrives in the smoky, crowded homes where families sleep in 1 or 2 rooms above their workshops. Fleas and lice are constant companions. Rats move freely through the thatch and timber. Around 1347, all of these conditions will combine with catastrophic consequences when the Black Death arrives in England, eventually killing an estimated 25 to 30% of the population by 1351. The plague does not create the filth. The filth is already there, waiting. The crowding makes everything worse. Houses share walls. Upper floors hang over the street, almost touching the buildings opposite. Fire is a constant danger in a town built almost entirely of wood, plaster, and thatch. A single overturned candle can consume an entire row of houses. There are no fire brigades, no insurance policies. If your home and workshop burn, the guild fund might help, or it might not. This is the tension of medieval town life. The market town offers opportunity, community, trade, and a degree of independence from the feudal land system that holds the countryside in place. But it demands a price. Your lungs fill with smoke. Your water makes you sick. Your neighbor's waste runs past your door. A good market day might put food on your table for the week. A bad season of illness might take half your street. As the afternoon wears on, the market square begins to empty. Farmers pack unsold goods back into their carts. The toll keeper at the gate watches them leave. The fishmonger scrubs his boards. The butcher on Butcher's Row swills water across his stall front, sending a thin red stream into the gutter. The bells ring for vespers, and the working day ends, at least officially. Workshops close their shutters. The square falls quiet. The town does not know what is coming. The 100 Years' War between England and France has already begun in 1337, disrupting trade routes and raising the cost of imported goods. The Black Death will arrive within a few years and reshape everything, from labor costs to class structure, from population density to the feudal system itself. The surviving workers will demand higher wages. The old order will bend. Eventually it will break. But none of that is visible from the market square on a Wednesday evening in 1350. What is visible is simpler. A town built on trade. A community organized by craft. A society held together by bells, by guild rules, by the rhythm of buying and selling. Every modern city, every shopping district, every regulated market descends in some way from places like this. The streets were filthy. The water was dangerous. The work was hard, and the rules were strict. But people showed up, week after week, because the market was where life happened. Not in the castle, not on the battlefield, in the square, among the stalls, where ordinary people traded what they had for what they needed, and slowly, without meaning to, built the world we live in now.